Good afternoon, everyone. We will call the meeting of the Brown versus Board of Education Scholarship Committee to order. Do we need to call a roll, or do we have a quorum? Okay, we have a quorum, so we will go ahead and get the meeting started. We have three new members who have been appointed to the committee by the governor, and those three members are Dr. Barbara Inman. Dr. Inman, will you introduce yourself to us, please? I know who you are, but everybody else does.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning. Can you all hear me now?
Touch where it says mic off. There.
Okay, very good. Good afternoon. I'm Barbara LaSour Inman. I serve as the Vice President for Student Success and Enrollment Management at Hampton University. Very happy to serve on this committee and board.
Thank you, ma'am, and welcome. We also have Janita Kearney.
Good afternoon. My name is Janita Kearney. It is an honor and a pleasure to be here. I am an academic coach at Walton University.
Thank you and welcome. And we also have Cameron Patterson.
Good afternoon. I'm Cameron Patterson. I serve as Vice President for Student Affairs at Longwood University and Senior Partner with the Moton Museum in Farmville.
Thank you so very much, and welcome to each of you. These three new members are replacing Vishon Luck, Karen Ely Sanders, and Joan Johns Cobbs, whose terms expired. And we want to thank each one of them for having served on the committee, and their service was wonderful, and they will be greatly missed. We will now move to agenda item number 3, overview of program status, and Lily will give us an overview.
Madam Chair, since there are a few new members, I'll go over a little bit of the history of the program. It was created by legislation in 2004 for the purpose of awarding scholarships to Virginians who were unable to attend public school between 1954 and 1964 in the jurisdictions in Virginia where the schools were closed to avoid desegregation. Those 5 jurisdictions were Charlottesville, Arlington, Norfolk, Warren County, and Prince Edward County. The program began with just a $50,000 appropriation from the state at the outset. A private donor, John Kluge, offered $1 million toward the fund if the state would match the donation, which the state did. So the fund began with just over $2 million to start with. The first scholarships were awarded in the 2005-2006 academic year, and since that time, scholarships have been awarded to 89 individual students using just over $1 million, or a little more than half of what's in the fund. In recent years, the number of applicants has declined. Eligible students under the original criteria are now in the age range of about mid-60s to mid-80s. There are fewer people interested in starting a new educational program at that point. Right now, there are 3 students enrolled in the program. One of them plans to finish this academic year. The other 2 will be in for a few more years. And just under $1 million remains in the fund. This past legislative session, legislation was passed extending the scholarship's eligibility to descendants of anyone who was eligible for the scholarship under the original criteria. So the language of the new law specifies lineal and collateral descendants, so that will mean that children and grandchildren, but also nieces and nephews of any generation will be eligible to receive scholarships from the program. So that's a big expansion from what the current eligibility allows. So the purpose of this meeting today is so that the committee can begin to make decisions regarding that expansion and how to implement the new policies to have that go into effect for the coming school year.
Thanks, Lily. Any questions with regard to the update on the program status? If not, we'll move on to agenda item number 4, which is to provide an update on congressionally directed spending requests. And again, Lily will give us an update there.
Yes, at the last committee meeting, the committee voted to send a letter of support for a congressionally directed spending request that was submitted by Ken Woodley, who was integral in starting the scholarship program. He requested an appropriation to be made to the Brown v. Board Scholarship Fund. That letter that the committee requested was sent, and the funding request is still pending, but it has made some progress. Senators Kane and Warner were able to have a $500,000 request included in an education bill for fiscal year 2024. That bill was approved by the Senate Appropriations Committee. It is currently stalled and the outlook is unclear, but at the moment it is still pending, so there may be some more funds coming into the scholarship fund.
And what was the amount, Lily?
$500,000.
Thank you very much. Any questions with regard to that? Okay, we'll now move to agenda item number 4, dealing with the scholarship expansion for 2024 and 2025. Committee will need to discuss some various points with regard to the scholarships. We will need to discuss the cap on the number of new students, prioritization on criteria, advertising, and the timeline, and authorizing the chair to approve any final policies and applications. Let's begin with a discussion on the cap of the number of new students accepted into the program and whether or not we want to cap the amount that will be dispersed per student. So we will need to talk about whether or not we want to have 10 students per year at $10,000, which will equal to $100,000 per year out of the fund, or whether or not we want to have 20 students per year capped at $10,000, which will cost the fund $200,000 per year. And so that is open for discussion at this point. There is a staff recommendation, but at this point, let us discuss what it is that we would like for the committee to do.
Madam Chair, do we know what the average cost is for students attending who've received scholarships?
But they're applying to different institutions, so Lily, do we have an idea?
Madam Chair, the cost varies. There is in your folders an overview of how the funds have been expended over the years. It varies a lot depending on the student and the program. In recent years, for the currently enrolled students, it's been low, just a few $1,000s per student, but it really varies depending on the program.
So it's on the white sheet. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Senator Hashmi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Because we are still accepting students who fall under the original criteria and may still continue to have some applicants for that, my recommendation would be that we start with the 10 students per year, just so that we have allowance for any other individuals who fall under the original criteria, and we can still continue to help cover their tuition cost.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I like to echo that support. Unfortunately, Joan Jones Cobbs, who was the sister of Barbara Rose Johns, was not reappointed to this committee. And so, but one thing that I heard from her and Mr. Hamlin and others who were directly impacted by the school closure is that we want to make sure we can honor our commitment to those people who were directly impacted. So I do support the staff recommendation, and I think the 10 cap is a good start for us.
Any additional comments or discussion on the
Would
cap
this-
for new students?
Would this cap make it available for folks that were seeking at any form of education, whether it be undergraduate, graduate, postdoc?
Lily?
It's up to the committee to decide, but under the current policies for existing students, they can apply to any program.
So the staff recommendation is to set the cap for new students who are descendants, continue to accept any students under the original criteria, and continue to cover their full tuition.
I move that we just do exactly what the chair recommended, which is set the cap at 10 new students at $10,000 per student and continue to cover the cost of all of the original folks who were directly impacted by the school closures.
Second.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded that we set the cap for new students who are descendants, continue to accept any students under the original criteria, and continue to cover their full tuition. That has been moved and seconded. Is there any additional discussion? All in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
That motion carries. Okay, so our next item of discussion would deal with prioritization that will be used for this criteria. Are we going to do need-based, program-based, degree of relationship directly affected individuals? And the staff recommendation here is to require submission of FAFSA for new students who are descendants, and if prioritizing based on financial need. Delegate Munden King.
Madam Chair, this is a question for staff. Have we had the FAFSA requirement in the past?
We have not had the FAFSA requirement in the past. We've never prioritized based on financial need, so in order to determine financial need, the FAFSA would be the way for us to know who needs financial help.
Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Just to follow up, and I'm looking forward to hearing from others, especially we have higher education professionals such as yourself here. But I just wanted to make sure, I saw that there was an alternative to the FAFSA. I just wanted to make sure that wasn't a barrier, because I know, especially with those who don't have parental involvement, et cetera, that process can be challenging.
The alternative is available to anyone who is not able to submit a FAFSA, and Lee Andes from Chev is here and could speak more to that if you need more information.
Madam Chair, members committee, my name is Lee Andes, State Council of Higher Education. And as Lily had mentioned, we do have two different applications available for any Virginia student attending a Virginia institution. The federal FAFSA form is for the majority of students. 95% of students can complete that application. There are some, just due to their legal status primarily, are not able to complete the federal FAFSA. So we created a couple of years ago, 2021, I think it was, the Virginia Alternative State Aid application, the VASA application. So that is, if they can't fill out the FAFSA, then they fill out the state VASA form. Both forms would give us the same information in terms of either income numbers or a federally calculated student aid index. These are numbers we can use to determine financial need and compare students to, as far as prioritization goes.
Madam Chair.
Senator Hashmi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since we did not use need-based criteria for the original applicants, and because the scholarship, in fact, was not set up on the basis of serving a need-based population, but rather was established to address historic wrongs. I would recommend that we prioritize criteria based on the degree of relationship to directly affected individuals, most especially serving first those who are of lineal descent, and then looking secondarily at collateral descent. But because the purpose of the scholarship was to address a historic injustice, I would not recommend that we add a need-based component into the criteria.
Dr. Inman?
Yes, as a higher education professional, I totally agree with the comments, absolutely.
I'm just curious with the degree of relationship criteria. Submit regarding that lineal relationship, and I only ask because from a museum standpoint, when we've put forth some scholarship opportunities, that can be a tough criteria to verify.
So, how have we done this in the past, Lily?
In the past, we have asked people to verify where they were attending school, and it just verified to the extent possible. It's also written into the law that it's a misdemeanor to present any false information. So between those two, that's about the extent of what we can do.
Yes.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we use the prioritization criteria as the degree of relationship to the directly affected individuals and program-based.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the prioritization criteria be based upon the degree of relationship to directly affected individuals, program-based. That has been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Madam Chair,
Senator Hushman.
I am not entirely clear about the program-based. What is that criteria? Is that the degree that the individual is going to be pursuing? Is that?
At the last meeting, the committee discussed possibly prioritizing based on whether someone is entering into a high needs area, if they're maybe going into education or any other area that the committee might choose to prioritize.
Madam Chair.
Do you want to add that or just simply degree relationship?
Madam Chair, it's my recommendation that degree of relationship be the criteria. If we choose to go to a program-based criteria as well, in addition to that, we would potentially disenfranchise an individual who may be wanting to major in history or in religious studies and so forth. So again, that was not a criteria necessarily used in the original structure of the scholarship program, and I would recommend that we follow the relationship model.
Is that an amendment to the motion?
That would be an amendment to the motion.
Okay.
Accept it. Accept it.
Okay. So then we are voting on the amendment to the motion, which is to remove the program-based aspect of the motion. All those in favor of removing program-based, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, then the main motion would be to the prioritized criteria would be to the criteria would be degree of relationship to directly affected individuals. And that has been seconded. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, then that motion passes. All right, so our next area of discussion would be advertising, and in that particular point, we would authorize the staff to do advertising for the scholarship. Are we all in agreement to allowing the staff to advertise for the scholarship and move forward on doing that? Okay,
Madam Chair,
yeah, Senator Hanschman.
I move that we authorize staff to move forward with advertising the scholarship program.
Second.
Moved and seconded that the staff be authorized to move forward on advertising for the Brown versus the Board of Education Scholarship. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, now our timeline is to begin advertising the application window from January 15th to April 12th. And so that is the staff's recommendation. So we will need, do we need a motion on that, Lily? Or just accept that as a timeline? So do we want to make that a formal motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded that the timeline for advertising the application would be January 15 to April 12th, 2024. All those in favor of that, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, the next committee meeting would not be until after session, which would be, well, it would be mid-May, to decide on those awards following the deadline for the applications. So the next item of discussion or decision points for the committee will be to authorize the chair to approve any final policies and applications. There won't be a whole lot of that going on anyway. So need a motion on that authorization.
Second.
Moved and seconded that the committee authorize the chair to approve any final policies and applications. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, so we are now down to the next meeting. The next meeting will be in mid-May, following the closing of the window for the applications, which will be April 12th. Which will allow the staff an opportunity to gather those applications and pull those together for us. And there will be polling for the actual date of that meeting in mid-May. So answer the poll when it's sent to you so that we can get a quorum for that meeting date in mid-May.
Will staff send us the information that you use for advertising, so that we could also put it out to our respective constituent bases? Okay, great, thank you.
So is there any other business to come before the committee?
It's not business, but just a point of information. Our community at Longwood has been so thrilled and heartened to have amongst our freshman class 77-year-old Martha Bailey Brown, who is a recipient of the Brown Scholarship. And she's such a dynamic individual, and the impact that she has on our students, faculty, and staff makes this work that you all have done that I can join in on so worth it. So thank you.
That's great.
You can go on the Longwood website under the news section if you care to read her story and see the video.
That's great. We've had everything from BAs to PhDs. Mm-hmm. Any additional information or business?